Good evening, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are in the world. Welcome back to a new episode of Social Convos. I'm your host, Diego, together with my co host, Jean-Luc. Jean-Luc, how are you doing?
I'm doing great, and it feels great to be back live because the last couple of episodes were actually pre recorded, but we're live, back live on LinkedIn, on Facebook, on X, on Twitch. So I'm excited uh, for a brand new edition of Social Confoes.
Awesome. And before we go into our guest, quick announcements. We are on YouTube at youtube.com at Confoes. That's Confoes. We're also on Instagram. Follow us there at Confoes. And most importantly, subscribe to our newsletter at confoes.substack.com. Those already subscribed got something in their inbox today. So subscribe for live updates and new episodes straight to your inbox. With that being said, who are we talking with today, Jean Luc?
So today's guest is somebody, and if you read the bio, it's pretty damn impressive because we're not really that fashionable or know that much about the fashion industry itself. But our guest today is somebody who has a wide variety of international experience. She likes to travel, just like we do, but also she likes the interior of Suriname, just like we do. She's actually a Forest 93 ambassador. So she is an ambassador for making people aware that Suriname is 93% covered by rainforest. She's also the president of the Wildlife Rangers Club of Suriname. But her name and her stage name or her brand name online basically comes not from nature, but from being a model as well. And I'm just going to name a couple of things, Diego, because we don't know all the brands. If I would list the brands, we probably wouldn't know them. Aside from maybe Prada, that we know about Prada, and that she's walked for Prada, and that she's worked on the fashion at the fashion weeks in Paris, in London, in Milan. She's been on multiple magazines, even on the covers, I think, of some of these magazines for Glamour, Vanity Fair, Vogue, Annabelle, and she has worked with a lot of industry leaders in the fashion industry.
And that is a mouthful. And we are definitely looking forward to learning more about all of that. While Jean Luc gets back, I'm going to welcome to the stage Miss Super Sharda. Sharda, welcome to Social Convos. And we'll get
Hi,
Jean Luc
Diego.
back up here
Hi.
in a second. But yeah, welcome. That's been a long list of names, brands. I know some of them here, the catwalk, all these fashionable things, high-end markets. I've been to Italy once, and you see these fashion stores and with security guards. So, Shada, tell us how is it like? Just before we go into the backstory, like where does the super come from? Like, what's so super about Shada? What's Shada's superpower?
Ah, okay. Well, first of all, thank you for having me. And that was an amazing introduction, Sean. Jeez. Thank you. Super. Yeah, super is actually a way to remind myself that I can do whatever I set my mind to. And when you're off trying to reach your goal, it doesn't go smoothly. There are always obstacles. And then sometimes you need something to pep you up and be like, you got it. Just gotta be patient, push through, be consistent with your work ethic and everything. So I decided to call myself Super Sharda as a reminder to myself that I should never give up and I should just keep on going. Know what you want and just go for it. And that's exactly what I did when it comes to modeling specifically. I didn't really have anybody really close to me that has um, reached a certain level that I wanted to be in. So I really had to go out there and search for people and do my own research and just figure out how to get where I want to be. And there were certainly moments where I just had to, take a leap of faith. And I'm fortunate that I have a lot of people that do believe in me, but there were also some times where like, are you sure? And I just had to make sure that I believe in myself first, and that also sparks in other people that are gonna, support you. And even though it's something that I wanted, that I did, but with the support of friends and family and just people that I meet, it helps a lot.
I think super everybody has a bit of super in them, but not everyone knows how to extract it. And you found a way to keep yourself motivated, put a goalpost in front of you. So where does the, let's say, the fashion modeling, did that stem from a young age, or how did that develop and shape you before going into it?
Yeah, actually, it did. Mm, Growing up, I actually wanted to do a lot of different things. I love animals, so at some point I
Yeah,
wanted to
because
be.
John looks at wildlife, ranger,
Yeah,
like that's not a combination you kind of get. I saw a photo of you, I think on Instagram holding a frog. So
yeah, yeah. it's it's so funny. I've been scared of frogs for years, even though I love animals, but frogs. But recently, with Champierre and the Forest 93 family, went to Kamalasamutu, and I just said, like, it just felt like a special night. Like, it's probably gonna be something good that's gonna happen. And then this big frog popped up, and it's like, okay, I gotta I gotta do it. And then yeah, with the help of Champierre, I got over that fear. Like, holding a frog was never. I got used to them because I don't live in the city anymore. I live surrounded by forests, so frogs are a daily thing. So it's not it's okay for me to see them, but then holding them was something else.
just out
And
of
yeah, so
curiosity, like what's the sensation of it having a frog in your hand? Like how would you describe that to someone? Like the feeling in your hand.
to be honest, so when I was really scared of them, just holding them was like so yucky. Just, I would have to rescue my dogs from the frogs, because the frogs love to go in the bucket of water, and I had to get them out of there. So I would use a stick. I would literally stand far, far away and use a long stick and poke them. But just the feeling of the stick poking in their skin was so, what is the word? I couldn't stand it. I couldn't stand it. But when we were holding the big toad, or I was holding it, it actually wasn't scary, wasn't yucky. I, in a few seconds, I was like, "Hey, this frog actually looks cute. I can." It's not a big deal. I must say I'm gonna kiss a frog, but it felt okay. It felt okay. I was actually more comfortable. I'm more comfortable holding snakes and dealing with snakes than with a frog. So that's the irony of it. But I'm okay with it now. They are soft. They are soft, and I guess a bit slimy, a bit.
Okay, but now I
So
do have
yeah.
to ask the question though, because you've lived in China. We'll get back into that a little later, but you've never eaten a frog?
Ah, life is full of ironies, right? I
Yes.
have I have eaten a frog. I have. Um So I was actually on a model job in China, and this fellow model told me after a job, like, "Hey, Sharda, I like this restaurant. I like to try new things. Would you come with me?" And I like trying new things. I like adventure. I like challenges. I was like, "Okay, cool, sure, let's go." So we go to this restaurant, and she's like, "I want to try frog." And I just said, like, "Okay, cool, we do that." Even though I was very scared of frogs, I just said yes. So the frog came, and in my mind, I thought, okay, it's just gonna be pieces of frog meat, and cooked. You won't recognize the frog, just how we usually eat chicken, right? When it came, was on this little barbecue set, and you literally had a frog. It looked like they split it in half, or they open in half, and then they split him up like this, or spread him up like this, and put two sticks, and he was like on a barbecue. And so it came on the table. I was like, oh my God. So that's when I realized, like, wow, this is a real frog. And then one of the friends took the frog and put it on my plate. And I was like, I started breathing heavy. I couldn't stand the fact that the frog was on my plate. It was so close to me. So, but I was already there. I said, I'm going to try frog. So I told him, like, okay, listen, get the frog meat off the stick and put it for me, and then I'll try it. So it's like, okay, I'll do it. So he took the frog. You remember there are two sticks, and he just in front of me just split it up, like that. So the so the meat, I was like, you really have to do it that dramatic. So it was even harder. Then he just took a few pieces of meat and put it on my plate. I took one and I chewed it. I ate it. I was like, okay, it doesn't taste bad. It kind of looks like it tastes like chicken. You know what people say. Um, so I must say, it doesn't taste bad. Tastes good, but I couldn't continue. Just knowing that it was a frog, I could see the head. You could see the toes. Everything was there. The only thing that wasn't there was the skin of the frog. So yeah,
But
it was
you could recognize it. So was this in
yeah.
the what part of China was this? I'm curious.
This was in Beijing.
In
This was in
Beijing.
Beijing.
Okay.
I was actually living and studying in Shandong, Jinan,
Okay.
the capital city. And then in vacation, I would go to Beijing and do some modeling jobs there.
Okay. Because in the south, if you go to Guangzhou and a little bit in the south, the restaurants you actually walk through the the area where they have all the animals alive.
The animals.
So you actually
Yes,
walk past the frog that you're going to eat, and
we
that
can choose.
makes it makes the experience even worse if you're like an animal lover in general and you have to walk through that. I mean, if you're vegan,
It makes it very real.
that makes it really weird if you're vegan and you walk into those kind of restaurants. So I can imagine what kind of torture it must have been. But I think definitely eating an animal that you saw alive, it's difficult. But then to a more positive note, because you just experienced the interior of Suriname, what's your favorite animal in Suriname?
In general, it's gonna be cliche, but dogs and cats. Because I'm used to them. Grew up with them. So those are the ones that I love the most. Other than that, I do like snakes, and I specifically went to try to learn more about them, because I realized how many people in Suriname are very very scared of snakes, and it's actually it's unfortunate because we're part of the Amazon. We're surrounded by rainforests, all these animals. We should actually be the ones who know the most or are able to deal with them. Uh, but actually, we're so scared due to taboo or just personal reasons. So I wanted to be one of those people who actually would say, you can break through that fear. And it really is just a matter of education. The more you know, the easier it is. And it's also the same with frogs. The more I got to learn about them, just the fact that they're at my doorstep every day makes it easier. And you have a appreciation for them if you realize, or if you learn their worth and why they are part of our ecosystem. You get appreciation for them, and you don't go around and being too scared or find a reason to unnecessarily kill them, which is unfortunate, happens to a lot of animals. But yeah,
Yeah,
dogs and
just
cats.
because people don't understand them, they just, it's basically just out of fear and survival. But on the other end of the spectrum, we were talking about your origins on, you got Super Sharda, everyone's got a bit of super. You learn to conquer your fears with the frogs and animals. So how did you learn more about especially high-end fashion? Like how did you roll into that world, or how did you like tap your way, like
Oh,
find your way or
oh,
navigate through it?
yeah. Okay, so the interest started when I was watching America's Next Top Model on TV. And To me, it was just so impressive to see people being so confident on the runway, showing the clothing, using their body, their expression, and you give a show. So that really attracted me, and I like to do things that challenge me because I believe I'm on this earth to reach the highest potential in every area: physical, mentally, spiritual, etc. So looking at them was like, wow, it's amazing they can do that, and I would like to conquer that part of myself as well. And fashion, of course, very interested in it. In the beginning, I didn't see myself as one of those models, but I wanted to be part of the fashion industry, so I decided that I'm gonna try to be a fashion designer. So I had my own sketchbook and tried to make some designs. After a while, I thought to myself, I don't really know if I want to do this. I have to create another set of clothing every season. It seemed too much pressure. And then I was also part of a modeling, yeah, you can say modeling agency here in Suriname, where we would do some small jobs in Suriname, do some runways. And what I also did is to figure out what I actually want out of this. So I had a goal, and I knew I wanted to do international modeling. I wanted to be on the runways. I wanted to do high fashion. I wanted to push myself as far as I could, see where I could be. And in order to do that, I always make sure I do my research. So I would go online and I would read articles of interviews with uh, modeling agencies, directors, modeling agents, or models themselves, and get some clues out of those. Go on websites of modeling agencies, and you always have a recruit page where they tell you what type of pictures to send, what type of videos to send. So I would do all of that. I did it when I was in Suriname. I did it in China as well. I would go to all of these agencies with my high heels, with a list of all the agencies in Beijing. Without an appointment, I just go there and I do my walk. Eventually, I got a chance to walk in the Beijing Fashion Week, and I did for the designer Lia Seong from Korea. That was a real privilege. um, yeah, because also I only walked one time for her, and after that she told me like, from now on you're one of my supermodels. So that really gave me a good feeling that I did a good job, because I do see modeling as a job, and I want the client to be happy, satisfied with the work that I did. So she was very happy with that. But unfortunately, due to the fact that I also had to study, it wasn't that easy to do modeling as well, because you're not in the same city, and also modeling is literally a full-time job, at least if you want to reach the highest height in it. And studying is a full-time job on its own. And you have to imagine, I was the only non-Chinese in my class. So it was very easy to spot me if I'm there and if I'm not there.
Yeah,
So yeah, I
I
had
didn't
to.
even think about that part of like skipping class, and especially how in China the rules might be a little bit more strict than they're here in Suriname. So I can imagine that. But also definitely the like it's not like people wouldn't notice it indeed.
Yeah. I mean, one time the teacher said, like, yeah, you weren't in class yesterday. I was like, teacher, I was there. So sometimes I do blend in. Sometimes I did blend in. Maybe like in the winter when you're wearing where my hair is covered, when I had my big hair. Um, but yeah, it is a different environment there, and for some of the teachers we had to stand up and we had to bow when he would come in the class, and then
Oh
the class would
really?
resume. So yeah, so that would
Okay.
be, I
Some
like doing
proper
it. I like
etiquette.
doing it those. It's a sign of respect, and it's a
So,
different culture. Hmm.
the reason you went to China was to further your education, right? But you were before that you were already doing modeling, like side modeling gigs in Suriname and doing your
Yes.
research. in parallel to
Yeah.
that. So
Yes,
why the
exactly.
choice of China? And did you know any Chinese? Or did you have to learn Chinese, or was it an English course in Beijing? Like, how did
Yeah.
that combination happen?
Well, that's totally on my dad. I was actually preparing to take my SATs to study in America. I wanted to, most of the people they would go to Holland, and I wanted to do something different. So the US was the next challenge for me. So I was preparing for that. But while I was preparing for that, I was already enrolled in school, university here in Suriname. So I was doing law. And on my way home after class, one of those days, my dad called me and told me, like, hey, I see that there are scholarships to China. You can go and check them out. So I was like, okay, China. In my mind, I was thinking, okay, I don't think I'm going to China, but I'll check it out. I'll check it out. So I went to check it out. I did my research, and the more I did my research, the more I was so fascinated about the idea to go and study to China in China, because that was an even bigger challenge, not
The
knowing
challenge
the
was
culture.
elevated.
Yeah, it was like, this is what I want to do. This is completely different. I love different cultures. So I wanted to do it. I couldn't even go. Eventually, I couldn't even go to class anymore here in Suriname, because you have to apply, and then you go through a selection here in Suriname, and then they send your information to China and to see which school you go. So you have to wait to see, like, if you're really approved, and the timing to go, that classes start in China and in Suriname are different. So in order to make sure that in case you don't get chosen, you're not behind, right? So I would still go to class, but at one day I just told my mom, like, you know what, I really not feeling it. I'm going to China. That's what I'm gonna do. So I just stopped, and I waited, and I got chosen. So I went to China. And even, when you choose the study that you want to do, and then you also choose the university that you want to study. So you could select three options, and then the Chinese government would see where you fit best, or which university wants you. And even then, I purposely chose a city, a university where you didn't have a lot of foreigners, because I really wanted to experience the most authentic Chinese culture possible. Because I read in Beijing, there's so many foreigners, so it's hard for them to, adapt, because you're always surrounded by foreigners, right? And not that much by the locals, and the locals um, are very fierce to learn English, so they would speak English to you if you look like a foreigner. So it will be hard to actually practice your Chinese. I was like, okay, no, I want to go where I'm forced to learn Chinese, and there are not so many foreigners there. So that's how I chose Shandong University.
So I do have to ask, were most of your classes in Chinese as well? Did you have to do Chinese, your university classes in Chinese, or were those English taught classes?
99% was in Chinese. When you're doing a bachelor's, it's in Chinese. I think the medical students, they had the possibility to do it in English. When you're doing a master's degree, then you can have it in English. But yeah, so the course, or let's say the study, is 4 years. In Suriname is three. There's four. So the first year, they give you time to adapt. So you could have certain things in English, or you could have preparation of questions that could come, so you could prepare for that. But after that, you're treated exactly like the Chinese students. At least that's how it was in my school. I even went so far that I wanted to stay in the same dormitory as them, but they wouldn't allow that. So the foreigners were a different dormitory, because if you're in the same dormitory, it's even easier. But the schools want to keep that separate because different cultures, different ways of thinking, and so it would be harder for foreigners to adapt to the Chinese way.
What's one thing you'd say that for us, especially something that would be hard to adapt to? Like if you had to compare from your observations, like, oh, we'll never be able to do that, or oh, we would have to think 10 times before doing
Yeah,
something like that.
I, I think the first thing is we are more westernized in this part of the world. We're more westernized, so we think more individualistic, and there it's really community based. Um, and also had classmates from other countries. My first year you study Chinese, so you're with people from different parts of the world. So I had a lot of Korean classmates, and I remember there's a funny story. So one of my Korean classmates, he asked me to go for pizza. I was like, okay, cool. To me, it was just we're going for pizza. We're friends. We're in the same class. No big deal. On our way back, two of our classmates were also Korean, saw us. And they acted like, whoa, Sharda and him going for pizza. I was like, what's up? It's not a big deal. The next day, these guys, in front of the whole class, told the teacher, like, teacher, you know who we saw yesterday? Sharda went with him to go eat pizza. And you know what the teacher said? The teacher was like, Sharda, is that true? I was so shocked. I was shocked, and I was quite angry. I was quite angry because I couldn't believe how this was a big deal and why it was even mentioned. And
You were
yeah,
just tricked into a date,
so
basically.
yeah, and the guy he was in class and he was just quiet, just sitting, like he
He
wasn't
was
part of the
just
whole thing.
watching it unfold. So I want to
Yeah.
counter the question that Diego had. So what would be something that when you were in China, you looked at it and was like, wait, I know this from back home in Suriname.
When I went to the south, when I went to the south, that's where you have people speaking Hakka and Cantonese, and the first group of Chinese who were brought to Suriname were from the south. So the language, even though I didn't understand it, sounds so familiar, and I really felt at home there. Um, Other than that, the first thing that comes to mind is food. The food is similar, or you can recognize a number of dishes that we have in Suriname, but of course it's on a whole other level. But yeah, those two things I recognize the most. Mhm.
And how long did it take for you to fully eat everything with chopsticks?
Oh, oh no, I was really prepared. I practiced weeks before leaving. Before going to China, I was studying Chinese at a Chinese school. I was already eating with chopsticks. So I had bought chopsticks at Sumi and I was eating with it. So that was, yeah, I was really prepared. I had contact with all of the students, Surinamese students that are already studying in China. Um, yeah, I was really excited. I was overjoyed because I love Chinese food. So I was like, I'm gonna eat every
I'm
day,
gonna eat
the
everything.
whole
I'm
day.
gonna get all the dim sum I can find. I'm gonna eat it all. No, I
And
think
that's
yeah.
exactly what I did my first months and my first year. We were eating every day, like every day. I really gained some kilos. Later, I realized I was also kind of depressed because winter was killing me. But I was eating a lot. My pants couldn't fit anymore. So yeah, I was really, I was really making use of that.
Yeah. I believe you truly bought into eating with chopsticks when you start eating rice with chopsticks. Then you know, like, okay, you've committed. You have committed to it.
Yeah, rice and corn, corn with chopsticks, then you really pick one by one. The rice is usually sticky rice, so it's a bit easier. but the corn is really one by one. And also when you start challenging yourself and picking up your cup of tea with your chopstick, for example, that's another level as well.
Ooh, advanced chopsticks 101. So, okay, you're in China now, right? You also gave us a brief intro to your modeling, your first runway in China. So, how did
Yeah.
you, I'd say, with your friends, with your co-students, did they know about your fashion ambitions? Like, did they help you find these fashion gigs, like these auditions? Like, how did you
Yeah.
navigate through China, not knowing, going deep away from the foreigners and getting all of that with just, the full Chinese experience?
Okay. I must also say I wasn't like really away from the foreigners. We just had less foreigners. Because in school you're just on campus is huge, by the way. So you have the buildings with the classes, and then you have football field, this big library. Then you have different buildings for the dormitories, and a separate building where you take shower and everything. And then you have another building that's for the foreigners. So I was surrounded by foreigners. um, but when it comes to modeling, everybody knew. Everybody knew. Uh, if, yeah, people would just look at me, be like, "Okay, you're doing some fashion, something maybe." And also, I remember I had participated in a competition from where people had to vote online. So I had people all over the campus rally to vote for me, and also in Suriname, people were voting every day. So it was quite known. What I would do is the same. I would go online and search. If I would meet people, I would ask them about it. Um, there's there's some people who really helped me. Like there was a friend of mine, also a Caribbean. She was already in China. She was already modeling in China, so she got me in contact with one of the agencies in Beijing, and that's how I entered in the Beijing Fashion Week. Um, Also, there's another Surinamese student who was also already in modeling, Roxanne, and she was really great in helping in helping me to practice my runway. And also with her, I also went to Beijing, and we went to visit different agencies. So I would say that I'm very grateful and fortunate that I have people around that actually always want to help me and support what I want to do. And yeah, so they would actually also push me into it, be like, Shara, yeah, you really got to do that. That's really for you. So even if I would say like, no, I'm going to do this, or maybe I'm not feeling so confident in that moment, you're like, you look great. You're good. I remember one time I told you that I was eating a lot, right? So after a few months in China, I literally got puffy, like puffy cheeks and everything. No big deal, I don't mind, but I look different. So I was also on this website called Model Mayhem, and that's where I will also get in contact with different photographers and do some shoots. So this photographer wanted me to go to Beijing, and my pictures, they look in my eyes, they look different. So I asked my friend, like, hey, this photographer wants me to go and I really want to go, but I look different than in those pictures. And she was like, I think you look the same. You look good to me. And in that moment, I knew I couldn't trust her. Not in a bad way. I mean, like, she, she wanted for me to succeed so much that she couldn't tell me, like, Shara, you do look a bit different, But
So,
I
but
did.
the most important thing, what did the photographer say when he saw you in
Yeah,
person?
nothing. He didn't say anything. He was more than happy to take pictures, but I was a bit concerned because I did look different. But yeah, we took pictures, but it went well.
But you mentioned something interesting because I think a lot of people, we often don't realize how big other countries are. So just in context, the city that you studied in, how many people live there?
Wow, that's a question that I would have to Google to get the exact, but for sure a few millions
Yeah. And
in
that
the
would be
province. In
considered
the
like a
province.
small province somewhere in China, right?
Yeah, yeah, like more, like how many people of Suriname have? Like 600,000, right? That
600,000, yeah.
province has had a few million. So the campus is, geez, okay, we know ADEC. Yeah, campus is 10 times that. It's 10 times, yeah, yeah, 10, I would say that. Plus, the university has more than one campus. You have the campus in another city, you have the medical campus. So it's a lot. It's a big organization. Yeah.
So Beijing alone has around 22 million.
Okay, you
So
googled it fast.
yeah, just to put that into perspective, and you've been to Beijing and the different parts of the main cities of China. And how was travel like in China? Because in your introduction, Jean-Luc also said, you enjoyed traveling, you enjoyed going into the interior here as well. And if you had to compare city life versus more like, I won't say interior, but more the suburban parts of
Rural,
China, like
yeah, rural
the
area.
rural area, how would you describe that experience? And how did that add to your experience of Chinese culture?
Traveling in China is a lot of fun. You know, China is so huge. It's kind of like a continent because you can find all the different seasons, and you have desert, you have the tropical. Everything is in one country. So nature is also very beautiful there. The different cuisines. You have, I think, if I'm not mistaken, you have five different cuisines. So the cultures are also different. It's um, it's very beautiful. I went to the rice fields. It's just such a magical experience. And um, what was the main question you asked again?
Like, how did it add to your overall
Oh,
experience of experiencing Chinese culture? Like the different perspective, the different sides. Because usually people see city life or they see what we see in media, like, oh, the rural area is so like impoverished or something. Like, did you get a sense of any of that
the
you
rural
usually
area.
foresee?
What I saw is the places that I could see and the places that our school brought us to, because we also did school
Mm.
trips. Very organized and actually quite clean. But I'm not saying that everywhere looks like that, right? Those are the areas that I was able to see, and the rural area very beautiful. Um, the idea that we have is that it's very organized, and people are actually appreciating, they were in a state of actually appreciating the rural area more than the city, because you had for years you had this thing of people moving to the city in order to get better jobs, and then in the rural area there were less and less people due to that. And then but through time they were appreciating their nature and their pieces of land more, so they would go back to the rural area, and I think the government was also supporting that as well. So I was able to see that, and also the community family dynamic, the cultural celebrations, especially the New Year celebration. I was fortunate enough to experience it with at least two families, and the way that they welcome you, I mean, that it is they're very welcoming, and they're very eager to learn about your background, but as well very eager to teach you about them. So for somebody who loves culture and who loves to see the dynamics between different cultures, it was a blessing actually. That was pretty cool. The way it added to me is I was able to look at Suriname and my culture from an outsider's point of view. So I would incorporate things that I've learned from there. For example, um, the bowing. you know, that's something that I would do as well. A long time I haven't done that, I realize. But, bow out of respect and also as a thank you. When when somebody would hand me something, I would actually purposely take it with both hands instead of just with one hand. So those things that I observed, and I like that a lot. Also, one thing that really stood out to me is when we would do presentations in class, everybody would be very supportive. At least that's my experience. So even if you didn't do so well, they would still support you, and that's a very good encouragement for you to do better, and don't be afraid to make mistakes. Um, and yeah, maybe it's also the area that I was in, but I had a good experience. And also everywhere I would go, people would be like, "Oh, hey, why don't you stay in China? Why don't you stay here?" So that's nice if they if they say that. Means that they like you in their community. So I had a good experience. Yeah.
That's awesome. But now I'm wondering, like these things and the gestures. So, because you've experienced, of course, the Asian culture when it comes to modeling as well, but also the Western and the European culture when it comes to modeling. So, what's the biggest difference when you're like modeling in Asia versus, for instance, Europe or the US?
Hmm. Okay. Um, this is maybe more because I was also a foreigner in China, So I'm already treated like a bit extra special. At least that's how I felt. So even if I would do just a small job, I was taken extra care of. And because you're a foreigner, at least that's how I felt. So, but in the Western world, you have to be a big, big model to get the extra care. You have to find your way yourself. But people are overall nice, asking if everything's okay. Do you need anything to drink? Taking care of you. Um, the standards are also a bit higher in the Western world. Um, I think it has to do with the fact that the fashion business there is just a bit bigger. If you wanna be big in entertainment, for example, it's New York. That's where you gotta be. So the the amount of exposure people get there, it's greater. So, it's like, for example, being a model photographer in Suriname, the amount of diversity that you experience, not just in people, but the types of jobs or projects that you get is different than when you're in a bigger city. So in that sense, I would say for me was a difference. And yeah, um,
How was
yeah,
getting?
I would say that.
I would say, okay, you're studying in China. You got your first runway. How did you get like modeling gigs in different continents, like Europe? Was it the same process going through the
Oh,
website,
oh, okay.
um,
So,
referrals?
mm-hmm,
Like, how
mm-hmm.
did you find people, or vice versa? How did people find you to get you specifically there?
Okay, so in China, I had a network. People find you, you find people, and you're like, okay, Sharda models. Okay, you can contact Sharda. She wants to do that. Um, like I said, my goal was always to be an international model and try to go reach the highest possible. And I did my research, and I knew that I needed an agency. So I got a mother agency, and the mother agency's job is to sign you with other agencies. You have different types of agencies. For example, you can have an agency that has uh, a department almost in every country. Agencies like elite models, they have elite models almost in every country. So if you're signed with elite models, then you kind of have already have a network there. But if you're signed with an agency that specifically functions as a model agency, then they have to sign you in different countries. So that's how you are going from one country and hop to another one because the agencies have to communicate. And It also depends on the type of model that you are, because you might not be suitable for every market. Like the Japanese market is different than the market in Paris, for example. The standards that the requirements that they have for what they want a model to be or how a model should look like and stuff is different. So you have to see if you fit in that, and that is then the agency's job to market you
And what's
and to
what's
prepare you
the
for that.
what's the biggest difference? Because we're of course men, so we have very little knowledge of this. We've maybe seen top model a couple of times. What's the biggest difference between doing the runway and doing shoots for magazines, for instance?
In Europe and America, the biggest difference, the first thing that comes to mind is that you don't get paid for magazines.
Oh wow.
Really? That's
Yeah,
actually surprising.
yeah, you don't. There may be a few, but usually don't get paid. But in Korea, for example, you get paid for magazines. Um, Runway. The thing about runway is, so you have the and that's from you. Everybody goes to London. No, it starts in New York. Yeah, from New York you fly to London, London to Milan, Milan to Paris, and that is actually your chance as a model to be seen by the whole of the fashion world. So it's an opportunity to showcase yourself. And that is an opportunity, especially if you're a new model, that you don't want to miss. And runway, it has different standards than being on a magazine. Runway, it's more about your height, your walk. And of course, there are a lot of reasons why your height might not matter in this case or stuff like that. But there's some standards, your height, your walk, your measurements. Magazine is different. It depends. Are you in a magazine um, because they want a certain look for a certain cover? It depends for a magazine. There are no such standards as height and stuff like that. And also for a cover, for example, it it's also more about um, the prestige that the model already has. You know, so it's also like choosing a model for to be the ambassador for your brand or the face of the brand. It's the prestige the model already has, because the model has to, the goal for the brand is to be bigger and reach a different or a larger fan base. So the model is supposed to help in that case. So that's how also with social media, it's so important, so important to have a good amount of following.
So that takes into account as well. But then I have a
Uh,
question, and I
yeah.
mean, we've spoken about this, uh, but you've changed your look, and
Have I?
for some people that's a minor change, and for some people that's like, oh wait, I almost don't recognize her, because
Hmm.
on most of the on magazines that I've seen of you where you've posed, you had a big fro. It's even in your intro. And how did that change come about? And what
Yeah.
have what have you experienced so far with that change and modeling? Has it even changed, or is there no change at all?
Okay. Mm. Yeah. So my hair has always been like this, the centerpiece of my life. Actually, not just modeling, but just my life. And I love my hair. I love taking care of it. Um, at some point, I was getting a bit tired of always having to sit for people to do my hair. And other than that, I felt that I was going in a transition in my life where I would need a lot more time. Like I said, I love my hair, I love doing it, but it does take time and planning. Because the hairstyle that you usually see is big curls, but the big curls don't just come like that. If I get my hair wet, the curls are gone. The curls are little curls. So I need to prepare myself. So if I know I have an event on Friday or I have a job on Tuesday, that means that now I'm gonna prepare my hair, wash it, braid it, make sure it dries beforehand, da 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 da. So I can do that on Tuesday. So it takes a lot of planning. So you can imagine if I have a job now or tomorrow, I'm like, okay, everything else that I planned for the day, I need to go do my hair. So in case my hair wasn't ready for tomorrow. Um, so I've always wanted to actually cut my hair. I had cut my hair before when I was in China. I did it when I had to, when it was my last year, when I had to write my thesis. I I guess I was a bit fed up with myself. I was stressed. I was like, okay, I really need to focus on this paper. So no distractions. Just write this thing. I'm gonna cut my hair. And I did that. And I wrote my paper and my hair grew back. No big deal. People were shocked. Some were not happy. I didn't care. Um, but I had cut my hair like this, I think, and I just let it grow. I just let it grow. But I always wanted to have it boy short like this. So since the end of 2022, I just felt like this choice was gonna come, and I cut my hair after I had my last trip when I went to Germany in February, March, and May. And when I came back, it took a few months because I was still thinking and contemplating, but I just decided, you know what, this is what I really want to do. I've been thinking about it a long time, and I think it's a good choice for whatever transition I'm going to go through. I didn't know what's going to be on my path, but I knew that this is what I need to do. And overall, the reception has been positive. Maybe also because people maybe have realized that I really don't care what others might think. I wanna cut my hair, so I'm gonna do it, and I get even more attention sometimes actually. So, but for me, let me say when I cut my hair, I did it myself. I had asked my dad for who's a hetondusa,
Yeah.
that thing that you
For a
cut your hair
trimmer,
with,
for a trimmer. Yeah.
a trimmer, and he didn't leave it for me. Then I asked my mom like, hey, did did dad say that he left the trimmer because he was gonna leave? So she was like, what, you're gonna cut your hair? So she was also not up not happy about hearing that. So I thought to myself, like, you know what, people are boycotting me, let me go cut my hair myself. So one morning I just woke up and I took the scissors and I cut my hair, and I looked myself in the mirror. I was like, wow, I don't think I look so pretty, but this is a choice that I make. I'm gonna run with it. so, so I just did it
Well, it
because
works because now when you come from the jungle, you don't have to like, oh, I have a shoot tomorrow. I have to to get everything out. So
I don't
I
need to
do
wash my hair.
understand. Yeah.
There are no branches in my hair, no insects in my hair. I can just touch my scalp. It's so refreshing.
The
It's
logistics of hair maintenance has
yeah,
been removed.
yeah. I'm gonna grow
Because
it back though, but I'm enjoying it for now.
yeah, because I can imagine the hours it takes and preparation and then mental capacity it takes. So you're back in Suriname now, I guess. I'm not sure for the foreseeable future. Or are you operating from Suriname? If you have a modeling gig, how do you do that? Do you get contacted, fly over? And you also are one of the few of, if not only, you're also a Surinamese passport holder. I saw that in your bio. And we know that traveling with a Surinamese passport has its certain challenges depending on where you need to go. So, yeah, how do you do
Yeah.
the international modeling from Suriname?
So actually, I took a break since last year. I've been, like I said, I felt like I was gonna do something else. Not that I'm not doing modeling at all, or not gonna do it, but there's some other stuff on my pad that are taking taking up a lot of time and energy from me. So I need to focus on that. Mm, the Surinamese passport, that is something that I consciously chose. I wanted to make sure that, knowing that I want to go internationally with this and I want to, reach the high success that I can possibly be reached. I wanted to make sure that I am an example for others, that they know that it is possible with the Surinamese passport. Of course, you have to ask for a visa, so you also have to plan for that, and you can miss jobs because you don't have your visa. But it's a choice that you make, and that's what I did. And I feel it's very important for us to be proud of ourselves, for others to also be proud of us, or it's at least respect. And I completely understand when others, for what their situation is, that they may choose something else, because for other nationalities you can have another passport, right? But once you're Sudanese passport holder, that's the only one you can have. So it's this one or another. So I completely understand when other people, they have another choice. I am in a position where I can say, I'm going for this. This is the path that I'm taking, and I am very happy that I've done that. Um, because this, I want to be one of those examples where people be like, or youngsters be like, okay, it is possible. And actually, it is not such a big deal, because especially if you're working, so you have somebody in a foreign country who is your host, right? So when I apply for a visa, my agency will sign for me, like, okay, she's coming, she's a legitimate model, this is the contract that we have. So it's just a matter of applying, paying the money for the visa, and waiting to be approved, which is usually in 2 weeks, and then you set off. um it isn't that big a deal. It isn't.
Thanks for sharing that, and I'm happy to hear that you've decided to take that route. Like you mentioned, not everybody's in the position to do it, but it makes it even better that you take the time to explain and say like, "Hey, but it is possible." So we've almost hit the hour mark, and we have to close off this episode of Social Confoes. But we do want to know, first of all, where can people reach out to you, and secondly, what's in store for Super Strada for the next coming months and the next year?
Yeah, good question. Okay, social media: Facebook, SuperSharda; Instagram, SuperSharda; TikTok, SuperSharda. And my number is also there, so you can text me. No calling, no voice note, just text, and we can get in touch. Yeah, my email address is also there. What is in store? I have found myself being a moment. Yeah, thank you, Al. Yeah, I found myself actually in the tourism business, um, where, thanks to actually the hosting that I was able to do for Wuda Maya, who was here last year, I realized that I do like this. I like representing Suriname in this way, and and being a host, in a sense that you make sure that your guests get whatever they need when they need it while they're in the country. So that is a part. I cannot tell you exactly what is going to happen, how it's going to happen. I'm still dabbling into it, but it's going in that direction. I am also looking into developing models themselves for the route that I have taken. It's a way for giving back, because I do realize that there are a lot of other people who also want this and may not have the guidance that they might need. So I am preparing myself to be able to do that as well.
So definitely enough in store for people So definitely follow Sharda, Super Sharda, on all the socials, and you'll see what she's in store, who she's gonna host next. We don't know, but we are definitely looking forward to it. Sharda, it's been a pleasure. It's been very insightful, and especially to learn about the high-end modeling world, and that you're doing it, from Suriname. Yeah, you've been doing it for years, and that you're also paving the way for others, so that they can follow suit and also follow in your footsteps and raise the bar in general. With that being said, Sean-Luc, any final thoughts?
Super Shada, thank you for joining Social Confoes. Diego, thank you. And for all of you who've watched, who commented, and who've liked this podcast live, thank you so much for tuning in. This was Social Confoes. See you back next week, same place, same time. Bye bye.
Thank you.